points, right? So just repeating again, tonight's topic is about support, resistance, and trend lines. And when they meet together, it's called confluence. So we're going to go through that tonight, and we're going to use that as our way of understanding where the trade is going to possibly go to, right? So you would have persons who are mainly trend line traders, and then you would have persons who are mainly support and resistance traders, right? Both of them are important, right? Now, if you're a trend line trader, you still need support and resistance to understand where the trade is likely to go to. So you'll be using that for your take profit points, right? You'll be using that for your take profit points. All right, so let me just go ahead and share my screen. Good stuff. So bounce back, right? Bounce back, and then I'm going to go over to Trading View. Now, yesterday, I think I posted this setup in the Bounce Back Telegram that I have for those of you who are in it, right? And we were looking at a buy on OddCAD. Now, if you didn't know already, majority of the pairs relating to Australian dollar and New Zealand dollar mainly tend to move in the Sydney session. All right, so just make sure that you guys are making these notes, because if you notice that during the New York session and so forth, and you're not getting much movement from the Australian dollar pairs or the New Zealand dollar pairs, is because these tend to move mainly between Sydney and Asian sessions, which is anytime between 5 p.m., right, up until about 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right? So you would find, that's why you would realize that majority of the news related to Australian dollar, right, and New Zealand dollar tends to happen from 5 p.m. onward, because that is when these pairs actually tend to move, right? So just make note of that, because if you have a bounce back that comes out and it says that is an Australian dollar pair, or it says that is a New Zealand dollar pair, and it came out, let's say 8 o'clock in the morning, and you notice all throughout the day that the trade is not moving, right? It's probably in consolidation, or you're getting very minimal movement. You can look for the movement of that pair to happen in the Sydney and Asian session. So if you understand that, I want you to type in the chat right now, I. All right, I want you to type in the chat right now, I. Don't want no numbers, I just want you to say I, right? So just put that in the chat for me if you understand that clearly. Good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. No. So let's go to the OddCAD. And I posted this in Telegram yesterday, but let's look at it, right? So I'm gonna go over to Trading View. So if you're new to my Zoom calls, right? We take the bounce back trades and we go over to Trading View, right? It's better to work there because you can actually save your markups on there. So let me go to OddCAD. Good. So I actually posted this yesterday, and I said, this is what I post. I actually post the trend line, right? And we're gonna go through the whole setup now. This is the trend line that I post. Told you guys to buy on the break of the trend line, the 50 moving average. Let me put that back there. So I told you guys to buy on the break of the trend line, the 50 moving average, and structure. So let's go through that, right? Let's go through that. So 3 things that you want to buy or sell on. 3 things. The break of the trend line, the break of structure, which is support and resistance, right? And the break of the 50 moving average line. All right, so let's identify. So I'm going to remove everything from here. Good. So bounce back called a buy on Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, right? Australian to the Canadian dollar. So the first thing you want to do, the buy was sent somewhere around here. So I'm just going to put the eclipse around where they had actually sent that information there, right? So what we want to do, we already know the rules of bounce back. We want to identify, if we're buying the trade, we need to identify the downtrend, right? So what I did yesterday was we want to identify the downtrend. So I brought it here because this is where the trade got called, right? So you can see here, we can see the downtrend here, right? We got the lower valleys and the lower mountain tops. Lower valleys, lower mountain tops. All right. Now, when you've identified your trend, the next thing you need to do is identify your structure, your support and resistance. It helps you to identify possible areas that the trade is likely to retest and the areas that the trade is likely to hit as a take profit. So it gives you a target, right? It gives you a target, and that's key. So let's go ahead right now and look at our support and resistance, right? For the setup that we are trading first before we look for our take profit zones. So we know that this entire area here, I'm just going to circle it with the eclipse because this is when the trade got called, right? A second. This entire area here that I have the eclipse around is the setup that we are trading, is the setup that Bounceback wants us to trade, right? So the first thing we're going to do is look for support and resistance on the setup itself. So what am I going to do? You don't want to look for support and resistance on the time frame that you're going to trade on, right? So we're going to go back to the 1 hour time frame that they call the trade on, and we're going to look for our support and resistance on that time frame. All right. So taking a horizontal line, right? Taking a horizontal line, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to come here. Why? Because you can see how the market is testing this area, literally resting around this area before it reverses. Right? So everybody could see that. Now, I look at support and resistance as areas and not necessarily just lines, right? Now, it would not be perfect. My area might be slightly different to your area. You're not looking for perfection in support and resistance. You just need to have a general knowledge of where the trade is likely to retest and where the trade is likely to go, because everybody's support and resistance is going to be slightly different. But once you're in the general area, you're good to go. That's why it's key for you to identify an area rather than a line, because a line, you could actually end up in your wrong zone. So for example, if I had just placed, all right, this is my support, this particular line here, that's support, and I'm just going to say, all right, that's my true support, but the trade dropped lower than that, right? You might then, your stop loss could have been under there, so your trade might hit stop loss, and so on and so forth. So the whole idea is for you to pinpoint an area the trade is likely to retest, so that you would identify for yourself, okay, you know what, the trade is likely to go to this area, so let me place my stop loss in a zone that I know would not only protect my profits, will not only handle my trade and my risk management, but also, right, will be very strategic, right? So we want to be strategic traders. So we're identifying a zone, right? So I'm going to put my zone around here. My zone can be bigger. You could take in this whole area here, but I prefer here, right? Good. So we have our trend line. We have identified the support of the setup, because remember, this is the setup. This is why we identify our area here, because we're looking at the setup that we are going to trade, right? There we go. Good. So Now we want to identify support and resistance for our target. Now remember, bounce back call the buy. Let's just pretend that the buy did not happen as yet. So I'm going to take out all of this. Yeah? Good. So now we're going to look for support and resistance for our target, right? So now let's look and see what happened here. The trade came down, created a valley, came up, created a mountain top, and then came back down and created another valley, right? Now, in your valleys are areas where the trade turn around. So this is a support equals resistance, right? So we got that. In your mountain tops are areas where the trade would have turned around, right? So these are your target areas. These are your targets. So here you can have a take profit 1, and then over here you can have a take profit 2, right? Now remember that you're entering the trade on the 15-minute time frame. So let's see what happened. Now remember I said enter the trade. When we first look at this, I had a note here saying, where do I always do this? Enter on break of trend line, 50 EMA, and structure. Structure is support and resistance. That's the note that I had there, right? So when I say enter on break of trend line, we would have already identified support and resistance for our target and for our setup. Now we need to identify miniature support and resistance for our entry, right? So I hope you guys are following, and I know this is a little detailed, so you will need to watch this over and then obviously attend the class next week where I will go into more detail as well, right? So miniature support and resistance, right? Miniature support and resistance means that you're not actually coming here, because remember we want to buy on the break of the trend line, the break of the 50 moving average. So we want a solid body candle breaking the trend line, breaking the 50 moving average, and also breaking structure, right? This is structure here, right? This is structure here, where you see those red lines. I do it as an area. Remember, you don't want to do it as a line. You want to do it as an area, right? This is structure. So anything above the top of yours is a good place for you to enter the trade, right? No. So you know that we're looking for a break of structure, a break of 50 moving average, and a break of the trend line would bring the confirmations for you guys. Now, please do not forget the MACD now, because obviously that needs to line up, right? That needs to line up. So what do we have here? So over here, this particular candle is when the MACD, what did it do? I know that the lines might be confusing me, so I'm going to remove some. But there we go. So what do we have here? We got the break of the trend line, the break of the 50 moving average line, right? Remember that this is still structure. You got solid body candles actually breaking above structure, right? And is lining up with your MACD. Can everybody see this line? If you can see this line up, type me in the chat box. If you can see this line up, type me in the chat box. Right? So you guys could have actually bought the trade when it broke your area, right? So like for example, I would have entered here. Let me turn it around. This is where I would have entered my trade because I had a solid body candle, break my structure, it's already above my 50 moving average line, and it brought my trend line. This is where I would have entered. My take profit point is here, because that is a 1 hour support and resistance area that we would have identified. This is my take profit point, right? And look what happened after that. The market literally is trading is actually in consolidation around this area, around our take profit zone. So when you're looking at support and resistance, you need to look at support and resistance on the bigger time frame to identify the whole setup. That gives you take profit points, right? I give you take profit points. You need to identify support and resistance then on the time frame that you're going to trade on. So if you're trading on the 15-minute time frame, you need to identify support and resistance on that time frame. Why? Because you need to identify miniature support and resistance for your entry. Because remember, every time frame is going to have its own support and resistance, or its own reversal zones, right? So if you're trading the 15-minute time frame, is key that you understand these zones. Why? You don't want to get caught up in a trade. How many of you have been in a trade where the candle actually broke the trend line, and then it didn't get quite far before it reversed and dropped really hard, and then it hits your stop loss? How many of you have been caught in those types of trades? Just say I. Right? I know a lot of persons that I would have been teaching bounce back to, that when the trade actually breaks their trend line, it starts to consolidate here, and then you get a huge candle that goes into a sell, right? And the reason for that is because, yes, you got the breaking of the trend line, but remember, there's still a structure that needs to be broken. If that structure is not broken, the trade can respect that structure and then drop. Treat it as resistance and then drop. And then your stop loss is hit, basically. So if your structure is not broken, then you shouldn't be entering the trade. That's how I see it. So it's key for you to understand support, resistance, and trend lines. Now remember, when I started this Zoom call, we talked about when support and resistance meets a trend line trader, it is called confluence, right? So this entire area here where you can see that we have support and resistance along with the trend line, you have three types of traders trading right here for a buy. You have trend line traders, and you have support and resistance traders that are trading the buy in this particular zone, right? So when you're entering a trade, always try to look for your support and resistance on the higher time frame so you can identify your take profit zones, right? And then also look for your support and resistance on the time frame that you're going to enter the trade on, so you can identify the zone that it needs to break out of for you to confirm it will continue going in your direction. If that made sense, type I. If that made sense, if it doesn't make sense, please tell me. If you understand, please let me know. If you don't, then let's talk. Everybody understand? Good stuff, good stuff, good stuff. Perfect. So I'm going to do one more, right? I'm going to do one more. I'm going to walk you through this one that I would have done today on Euro, Australian dollar, right? So I'm going to give you guys a trade to look out for this week. But I can do it on a different broker so that I can line it up for you. So you guys could put EA on your watch list. Right, good. So for those who know patterns, you know that this is a head and shoulders pattern, right? You have a shoulder, you got the head, and you have the next shoulder. So I want you to tell me in the chat box what happens after a head and shoulders pattern. What are you expecting? Right. You're looking for the trade to sell. Exactly. Good. So we have our head and shoulders pattern here, right? Now, the first thing we said we want to do in any bounce back trade is that if we're looking for a trade to sell, we need to draw a trend line, right? So this is not a trade that was called on bounce back, right? But we can treat it as if it was. So we're going to draw a trend line. Right? So we have our trend line. Good. So now that we have our trend line, we're going to identify support and resistance for target areas, right? So what we want you to do is zoom out, right? And we're going to look for support and resistance for target areas. So we're looking for a sell. So we need to identify areas. We're not drawing support and resistance lines. So I'm going to come from here to the top of here. So I would have taken the majority of touches here, and then I went to the top of the highest point that that trade would have went within that zone, right? Next one, you can see here, right? So I'm going to come here. I'm going to go there. Why am I going here? Because I would have taken this mountain top and this valley to create an area, right? And you're just looking for obvious points. That's all you need to do, is to look for obvious points, right? All you're doing is creating areas. You don't need to be perfect. This is to help you, right? So these are the three areas that I would have identified as support areas for this setup on the H4 time frame. Good. Now we're going to look at the pattern that we want to trade, right? So I don't know if any of you guys would have taken this sell today. If you didn't, you could have by simply doing same thing that I am saying right now, identifying areas, right? Identifying areas. You would have noticed that's a 1 hour area there that I would have identified. So if you was entering this trade on the 15-minute time frame, you have this, and over here you have a double top. Touch the same resistance zone twice, double top. You touch here, went away, come back, you have your double top here, right? So for those that missed this trade, you could have gone into this trade based on this double top, touching resistance. That's why I say support and resistance is really nice, right? It's really nice, especially when you know what you're doing. Yes, for some of you, I don't know who would have went into this trade. You could have drawn a trend line, but you would have still kind of gone into this trade late. A support and resistance trader would have been in this trade from here. From the time they see that this is being rejected around the same resistance area, they would have gone into this trade around here on a smaller time frame. right? Trend line traders would have gotten into this trade here at the break of the trend line. So both of you guys would have pocketed today, right? Good. So let me finish up because our time is running out, right? So the zone. Adjust my zone. There we go. Good. So coming here, if we want to enter this cell, right? So we see the head and shoulders. We have the zone, right? So if we want to enter this cell, trend line traders would sell at the break of this trend line. Support and resistance traders will sell at the break of this zone. Right? If you want to be certain, you can wait until you get this situation where you have a solid body candle, not only breaking the trend line, but breaking the support zone as well, which is this that I would have created for you here, right? So you could wait for this type of situation and then enter for yourself, right? If you're a trend line trader, you can enter on the break of the trend line. Support and resistance, you're entering on the break of support with a solid body candle, right? So target areas, just spoke about these. Take profit one, right? Got take profit one here in this general area. Take profit two down here. Right? So you have your take profits based on the zones that you would have identified. Can price be rejected at the same zone? Yeah, but one thing I want you guys to know is this, right? I want you to note this as your nuggets. I went through this with my team already. So 2 touches of a trend line, right, activates a trend line. 3 touches confirm the trend line, and on the 4th touch you're looking for the break, right? So what do we have so far? We have 3 touches of the trend line. So the trade is going to reverse, right, before it continues itself. So you guys can look for this break on the 4th touch. So 2 touches of the trend line activates, 3 confirms. So we have a confirmed trend line, and on the 4th touch, we're looking for the break, right? So this trade needs to move away from the trend line and come back before it breaks on the 4th touch. Right, so you guys could actually write that down. That could be your nugget for today, for those who didn't know. Perfect. That's a help, Ryan. Right, so guys, you have your take profit zones here, right? If you want to go ahead and take a snapshot of this so that you can put this on your watch list for this week, go ahead and do so now. This is your trade setup. It's a beautiful head and shoulders pattern. You couldn't want it more beautiful than this. You got a nice engulfing candle here. The trade will retrace before it comes back down. So we're looking for the break on the 4th touch of the trend line. All right. So you guys can take a snapshot of that. You have here. Now, one more nugget that I'm going to give you before we leave is if you want to know how far will a head and shoulders pattern sell for the majority of the trade, all you need to do, I'm going to come down to 1 hour time frame, is measure from the top here. So you can measure from around here. I usually measure from here of the head. So like, you know, close to the top, basically, of the head. So from here, I take a trend line and I come all the way down to the neckline. Right? I'm going to show you something now. So let's go to 4 hour time frame. So we have this, right? that we would have just measured. And you're going to put it on the break of your trend line. Right here. Right? Now, we've just measured, right, from the top to the neckline. Right? So notice how this cell is lining up perfect with our take profit 1. Right? So you can see how the cell is lining up perfect with our take profit 1. Right? So whenever you see a head and shoulders pattern, you can measure from the tip of the head, not at the top, but let's say just around, how would I explain it? I would explain it as anywhere around here. You would find, you would know when you look at the head, you will see, you could look for miniature support and resistance, right? Because you could still see that this is a resistance around the head of the head and shoulders right here. So you can start from here, right? Measure from here to the neckline with a trend line, right? And then place it on the break of the neckline. Sorry, you want to place it on the break of the neckline. That gives you a general idea of how far the trade would sell, right? And how far the trade will sell when it breaks that pattern. So I hope that today was useful. I hope that everybody has some nuggets. If you don't understand what it is that I've done, come to class next week and the week after and just keep coming all the time. And I'm sure that your trading skill would definitely get better, right? As you guys go on, remain plugged in. That's key. Plugging in is key. Plugging in is key, right? So guys, thank you so much for supporting me. Spread the word. Let your teams know that I share nuggets every single Tuesday. I gave you guys a setup on Euro, Australian dollar, so you know to look out for that sell this week. If you make money, send it in the chats and put thanks, coach. I just want to know that I'm helping you guys make some decent money. All right. So guys, thanks again for joining me. Take care. Have a beautiful night, and I will see you guys next week, Tuesday.